Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Transitions Collective. I'm your host, Mary Clavier. This week, I'm interviewing Melanie Curtis. She's a life coach and professional skydiver. She's had over 11,000 jumps in her career, and she now helps her clients work through fear, build courage, and set boundaries. Melanie is an amazing person, and I hope you learned as much from her as I did. Hey, Melanie, welcome to the Transitions Collective.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, me too. Oh, we're going to have so much fun. I'm so many questions.
Fire away, sister. Let's do
Okay.
this.
Okay. Well, you have such a unique background. So how about we just start with a little bit about your background, your family life, and so on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a big,
Yeah.
big question, of course, for any person. Like, what's your life story? What's your background? But yeah, I mean, in conjunction and connected to my career story and stuff as the professional skydiving part of myself, and as obviously I've grown into the life coaching thing, but how that connects to my family is that I grew up with an aviation family in the sense that my dad is a pilot, and he
Cool.
flew small engine aircraft out of basically the backyard of our house for as
Yeah.
long as I've been alive. My first flight was when I was 3 months old. And very long story short, he and his best bud, he ended up basically meeting a person who became his best friend who was a skydiver. And they said, let's open a drop zone at the house, which they did. And so I grew up around skydiving. So my parents were divorced. So I visited my dad on weekends, but I was still exposed to skydiving at a very young age.
Mhm.
I sat through the first jump course so many times, and I could have gone skydiving when I was 16 years old, but I was too scared. Like I just wasn't ready yet.
Oh,
So
I was
then one day
wondering
I was
that.
18 years old,
Yeah.
and for whatever reason, it was right after I graduated high school. I said, all right, you know what? Tomorrow I'm doing it, jumping. So I sat in through the first jump course one more time with the actual intent of jumping, and I did. And, the rest from there is sort of proverbially history.
Oh, so you were scared at the beginning before
Oh,
you did your
yes.
first, okay.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
yes.
I was like, wow, she's done all these jumps and skydiver. It's like super intimidating. And I'm like, I'm scared of heights. So for me, it doesn't seem fun, but I was like, I guess you just grew up that way, but no. Okay.
Well, yeah, no, it's a common thing actually that I hear a lot. Think people thinking that I'm quote fearless and stuff like that, which I don't really like that idea because it's I feel like it's rare for people to feel quote unquote fearless. It's more, and that's why I stand so much in terms of this idea of overcoming fear and employing courage. So they're two different things. Like
Yeah.
overcoming fear, I feel like it sits more in the mindset. What am I thinking? What am I worried about? What am I projecting myself forward into such that I feel afraid right now, not doing anything? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that
Mm-hmm.
fear experience of the feeling of it. And then you've got there's skills and stuff around that and how we can diffuse fear and get to a place where we then feel like, all right, I've sorted it out enough that I can act, even though I
Hmm.
still feel a certain level of fear. Right. So skydiving is just a perfect example of needing to learn and then having a moment where you decide to jump and do the thing you're afraid of
Right.
doing. But it only comes with preparation and looking at our feelings and looking at our mindsets and learning and educating and doing the work that precedes us to the point of taking that sort of courageous leap, as it were.
Yes. Okay. Amazing. So I think it will line up a lot with what I've kind of felt and done through, especially this past year with leaving my corporate job and things like that. But what would you say are the top things that usually keep people in the fear state and not able to move beyond that?
Good question. Yeah, it's a great question because that's what most people come to me as a life coach now. So now, like working with people, because again, it doesn't have to be jumping out of airplanes.
Right.
Jumping out of airplanes just happens to be a very rich and shocking metaphor
Yeah.
for overcoming fear and
It's a great
taking
example
the
for you.
leap. Yeah, like so it's this really great metaphor. And I will say that it physically, literally informed me of now how I approach life.
Hmm.
Like when I landed from that skydive, like really afraid, I can't jump out of a perfectly good airplane and live. basically
Yeah.
that's the idea. A lot of people think it's heights, but really it's more like a fear of death because it's too high.
Yeah.
It's just way too high. It's like you can't even comprehend
Right.
it. It's like this weird, super weird thing. So usually for people, it's they think they will literally die, which is a totally understandable fear.
Okay.
And that's typically how it feels in general. Like if we talk about entrepreneurially, like if we leap entrepreneurially, like you're talking about leaving your job and then basically putting your safety, financial livelihood, food on the table, roof over your head, which is very much connected to our financial health and our ability to produce and generate income, at least in the society that we live in. That feels just the same. It feels like mortal danger, even though it theoretically is much more removed than that mortal risk of, say, doing a physical stunt of some kind.
Mm. Yeah, I still felt very afraid when I was leaving my corporate job.
Yeah,
But
so I didn't even answer your question. I'm sorry. Let me go and circle back and I'll answer. I keep talking about this.
No, it's so
My
interesting. No,
brain
I love
goes.
it. I love
My
it.
brain
Keep
goes
going.
so many different. So I would say that, you first need to feel that you're feeling something. So like it usually comes up in a person's body, whether it's, taking a risk in life and career. So you feel it, and then you can use that feeling to go, oh, I'm thinking something that I can't quite identify. So you can use that feeling to go, okay, wait, pause. What am I freaking out about? Like what's happening? What am I thinking that's causing me to tense up, to constrict, to feel this fight or flight response in my body? And then you can take a look and ask yourself those questions, really inquire, like, what am I actually afraid of? Is there validity to what that fear is having me look at? Because fear is there to help us, keep us safe. When we talk about overcoming fear, employing courage, entrepreneurially, I don't actually advocate the whole like, screw it, go live your dreams.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty reckless move, really.
Yeah.
So like that sort of implies that just F the system, get out, do, just follow your dreams and it'll work out if you do that, which maybe. I'm open to all possibilities in life.
Yeah.
And it seems very reckless without that preparation piece,
Yeah.
without understanding more thoroughly what you are choosing into and why. Where will you source energy and motivation once you have actually gotten yourself into a very stressful, potentially financial situation? Like all of those forces can be really heavy on us in entrepreneurship. And the passion part can be very motivating and very powerful. So it just depends on the person and why, like, what's the reason they would do this? Is it just because they hate their current job and they just want to get out of something? Or is it that they feel genuinely, passionately purposeful about something such that they'll have motivation and energy through any dip? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah, I suppose you see everyone on the spectrum depending on their personality type, right? I'm definitely more of a planner. So I could never just say like, oh, today I'm going to quit my job. That would
Yeah.
just never happen for me. So I definitely had plans and then on top of plans and on top of plans. But then eventually one day with all of those plans, you do have to do something, right? And
Yeah.
take that leap, if you will.
Yeah, and again, it's different for everyone. And that's
Yeah.
the thing too. So if we go back and really look at what precedes this, is that we do want to take a look at what are my core values? What do I care about? What's important to me in life for real, deeply, more deeply, because people who have families and kids and, have things that are connected to their desire for a more secure income and a more secure working situation, that's totally values aligned. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm sort of a champion for doing whatever is really genuinely feels right to a person. I just happen to be really, I think, wired and made for and have grown into values that have me fit really well being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, and having that level of risk in my business life, because the passion and the purpose is also extremely motivating to me. I genuinely wake up with high energy still 10 years later
So
as
cool.
a life coach.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing because the dips will happen.
Yeah.
The
No,
financial years of struggle will happen. If you think they will not, I would check yourself before you wreck yourself. It's possible that they won't, but it's
yeah,
unlikely that they won't.
yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Um, okay. Oh, I have so many questions. But let's go back a little bit, I guess, and so we can ground the audience too in your experience. So you did have a corporate job.
I did. Yeah, I worked
And
5 years in an investment bank out of college. I'm so glad I did that. I am so glad I did that because I learned so much about corporate life.
mm-hmm,
I made a ton of money and I spent it all getting good at skydiving. So I was
yeah.
able to then, when I left corporate, I was able to really go into a career in skydiving, not making money jump for jump, but really taking on a role of running a drop zone and leading the events and marketing and coaching and competing, which is a different way of being a professional skydiver than is typically done. And so that was really right for me. I knew I didn't want to live in a trailer on the drop zone eating ramen noodles like that. I knew that that wasn't my path, you know.
Yeah.
I started studying for the MBA. I like really was at that crossroads in that time in my life when I was thinking about leaving corporate America. But now as a life coach, so I did the professional skydiving and then sort of listened to another intuitive read in myself down the road. It's a longer story, but that led me to life coaching, which I'm equally, if not more, grateful for. I mean, it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to compare,
Yeah.
but I'm super thankful. Love this career so much. But what's interesting as a life coach and someone who helps people in the way that I do now, conversationally, looking at mindset, identifying values, identifying boundaries. What is your intention? How does that look in goal setting and actionable accountability? Like all that stuff,
Yeah.
super unsexy, but it builds into everything that's freaking totally awesome, you
Yeah.
know? So really quickly, one of my clients as a life coach ended up being an economist who worked in finance and I've worked with people, high level professionals for sure, but having that part of my career in investment banking and banking has totally helped and supported who I'm willing, not willing, but who I'm able to connect with and at
Mhm.
what depth I'm able to connect with them. You know, without having, if I just went, started and, did some other way, which is awesome and fine, but without that experience in the corporate world, I just feel like I would be able to meet so fewer people as a result now. And so I'm just really grateful for that time.
Yeah. And it gives you like a different kind of connecting point and credibility that you can, that you know, and that the person can know and trust that you went through something similar and you know how they're
Absolutely.
feeling, right? It's the
Correct.
same for me whenever I talk to someone that's maybe wants to leave corporate, um, but is too scared. And I'm just open and honest. And like, it was an extremely low point in my life, but I got through it. So, you know, anything that you really want is possible, I think.
Yeah. And it takes courage. And that's why I acknowledge it so much. That's why I value courage so much in whatever form it takes for a person. Like I personally see that and I just go, dang, awesome,
I don't
in
know.
whatever
Yeah.
form. So
Yeah, I don't know if we talked when we met a few weeks ago. What courage? I don't know if I showed you, but courage is my
awesome.
was my word of the year.
I love that. Oh my
Yep,
God. It makes so much sense. This is
yep,
totally why this is happening.
yes, yes, yes. So I had a good friend
Amazing.
suggest the bracelet because I wanted to do word of a year on a bracelet. Yeah, Lisa Lehman. Um,
Amazing. I
and
love it.
yeah, so I carry it with me everywhere because courage was really like I knew that's what I needed to have if I wanted to break through,
Yeah, it's
right?
true. It's a gutsy move to leave something familiar, even
Yeah.
if it is a quote unquote theoretical safe choice. Like I left corporate America for a salaried position working at a drop zone in Southern California. So professional skydiving to me it was still a stepping stone. So I
Yeah.
didn't really become full-fledged entrepreneur until 2010 when I decided to leave that drop zone and work for myself as sort of a free agent professional athlete traveling and coaching, which again, a part of my career I'm very grateful for,
Mhm.
while building and bootstrapping my business as a life coach and growing in that skill set, talking to people in between trips that I took either
Yes.
in the US or overseas. Like it was a rigorous time, lot of hard work, totally exhausted myself. Different story, but
Yeah.
legit, a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
in that
lot of
period now. I
courage.
think the transition, and there's always multiple transitions, right? Hence the transitions collective. But um, I think I'm in that kind of that phase right now because I left my corporate job and took on some projects and also launched Transitions Collective and a couple of things. But I am also doing corporate consulting,
Yep.
and it's a decent chunk of my day, and I'm trying to handle doing that plus the other things. But it's a way that I found that I could be comfortable making the switch and also building my business, right? Because even once you leave, like it doesn't happen like that, right?
Oh
So
no, not typically. I think that's a super smart way to do it. And I, every time I talk to people about transitions of this type of nature, I think it's smart. I mean, I still coach skydiving. I don't coach skydiving that much anymore. I do it very selectively now,
mhm.
but I do it now because I like it. I like certain parts of skydiving coaching a lot. So I do those types of jobs. But even now, I'm doing both. You know what I mean? But for the whole, pretty much the whole of the time, except for a 2-year period where I really did no skydiving work at all, and I really fully transitioned to my life coaching business, it takes time and it's okay. It seems wise in my view to be mindful of our energetic around safety and security. Have you seen Tony Robbins' TED Talk, where he talks about the core human needs? It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I highly
If
recommend.
I didn't, I'm going to.
I recommend everybody watch it. But I bring it up a lot because in that talk, he talks about our core human need for safety and security, right? So that sort of comes in the realm of whatever relationship and financial security, home stability, that type of feeling, stability. Then we have our core human need of novelty and excitement and sort of edge, risk, that type of feeling.
Mhm.
So if we have too much safety and security, we're
Mm.
totally bored. We get super bored. And
Yeah.
if we have too much novelty and sort of instability, we're anxious all the time. So
Yeah.
there's value in really looking at both mindfully as we make these types of transition choices, because it's so easy in the face of I'm so sick of this job, or I can't stand this, I'm so frustrated, to make a more reckless choice and then find ourselves in high instability, which then we don't realize makes us feel stress. So it's just being mindful of that stuff. If this is okay, just be ready for it. There's nothing wrong with feeling
Yeah.
unstable and anxious. Like, we can work through those feelings. Those feelings are normal. We're going to feel those most of the time in various life situations anyway. It's just like, okay, I'll make sure I practice my skills about how to manage that stuff. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Yes. And like the stress that might pop up and how you do it, because you can't really stay in that state for too long, right? Like I feel like I was eventually getting so stressed, well, and so miserable and a lot of other
Yeah.
things that I was eventually like ready to crack.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important for us to have skills. And that's the thing. I do this so super unsexy work of emotional skill building. So if I work with the type A person who comes from a corporate situation, who makes it happen, like the people that I work with most of the time aren't, they don't have a problem doing stuff. But
Yeah.
what tends to happen is that when they find themselves unsure of a direction, or if they find themselves in uncharted territory or unknown or uncertain of a potential outcome, which transitions and entrepreneurship in general are rife with,
Right.
there's an emotional skill set that then needs to be built. And so it's like, sounds so boring,
No, but it's
emotional
super
skills,
important.
but they're super critical for a person, and they're so awesome for a person who has the skill set of making it happen, of I'm not
Yeah.
afraid to act, I'm
Right.
not afraid to take action. It's
Right.
just that I need to figure out how to do that amidst these new feelings that I'm feeling that I'm not sure how to deal with.
Right. Right. Exactly. And there's so much noise now too, right? On the internet and social media and all those things. I've talked to a lot of women, even locally, and some friends that have businesses and or are just starting or have been working through a transition, and they have a tough time sometimes just from the noise of all the other people out there, and because they don't see the work from behind the scenes that has to happen for you to get to the point, that you want to be at.
Yeah. And
Right.
that's why the purpose, passion, fulfill, like the motive of, and I hesitate usually to use life coachy words like that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you have to know your purpose. Like, I don't love those conversations because they're overused and they feel exclusionary to me in a lot of ways. But if we talk about the concept, like that's accessible to anybody, and go, well,
Yeah.
what field? Because I do not like the whole live your purpose. That
Yeah.
I loathe that because of the exclusionary nature of it. Because, like, oh, if you're just not living your purpose, somehow you're screwing it all up, or you're not there
Right.
yet. There's something about where you are that's not okay. I
Right.
just don't believe in that at all. What I believe in, though, is purposeful action, because we can't predict the outcomes ever. But
Right.
what we can identify is right here and now, what feels like a purposeful, values aligned direction or action, however small or
Yeah.
however big, that we can always be clear on and ground ourselves in emotionally in the present, even when we can't predict the outcome of that action.
That's really important, I think, because otherwise that's how people get stuck, right? Because they can't move forward.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah.
I've
Okay.
seen anyway.
And would you say that the courage aspect ties into that? So say they've identified their fear and they're noticing that something's going on, and what you said before, and they have that feeling, and now they say, okay, I've identified that and I still want to go forward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the courage part.
Yeah.
It's when we have clarity around, we know that this is a direction that feels right and good to me.
Yeah.
I know this is a direction that feels like the right thing to do for me. And I say that without judgment of right and wrong of I say that in terms of our own deciding what is right and wrong for us individually and uniquely.
Yeah.
So when we feel clear on that, it's still very likely that we'll have old patterned ways of being, old mindsets that want and
Yeah.
ego type stuff that come in that try to block us from taking the new action.
Mm.
Also, it's just totally understandable that if anybody has 50 or 20 or 30 years practice doing something some old patterned way, from whatever thing they picked up from whatever childhood experience or life experience that made them imprint an unconscious thought that's directed their way of being. It's even when we go, oh, I put that into the light, I see that's motivating me, I see that's not serving me anymore. Still, taking new action means we don't have any practice at that new thing. Like, of course it would be hard to speak transparently with a loving tone to someone if we're used to just withdrawing, or if we're used to getting angry. It just depends, right? But
Yeah.
that's a brand new skill set. Of course we would suck at it at first. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And of course that would not feel good to a type A overachiever perfectionist type.
Right.
you know
Yeah.
Recovering. So yeah,
That is so funny.
it's easy to validate the whole thing for all of us.
So do you think then, in terms of like fear and mindset, so say someone's overcome a fear and they've taken the courage and they've pushed through, do those same fears come up again, or do you get new fears, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. Obviously it's different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that I've ever worked with, and myself included, it's comedy to me, because it is almost this preposterous thought that we have a breakthrough and we are then shown a new direction or skill set that we can start practicing to learn into, what I just said earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would take one iteration,
Right.
one single iteration, for it to be gone forever. It is completely ridiculous. And so many people, and I've totally done this to myself too, is that judgment, that self-judgment comes in of like, it's come back again. I thought I
Yeah.
sorted this out. I thought I saw this. I thought I fixed this. And that self-judgment is another layer of the learning, of going, oh, of course it
Yeah.
would take more tries. Of course it would take iteration. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
some of these skills are years and years of work. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Self-love, like tons of that stuff
Right.
takes a lot of iteration to undo the decades prior of practice we have the of doing the other thing or
Right.
thinking the other thing.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
that's my
Okay.
answer to that.
Okay. Yeah. I figured, but it's good to hear it.
It's good to just to confirm.
Right. Right. So, yeah, so I should ask you, okay, so are you still scared of, well, yeah, are you still scared of skydiving?
That's such a good question. I People get very surprised when they hear that I still have fear of skydiving.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It comes in waves. So for
Mhm.
example, a part of my career where I was really burned out and like just after traveling for so many years, I was exhausted and disconnecting from the pureness and the purposefulness that I had originally and the joy that I had originally felt skydiving,
Mhm.
because I feel really truly joyful and purposeful in my ability to, and the role that I get to be in skydiving for other people in terms of helping them access joy and helping them do things they think they never thought they could do.
Mhm.
So connected to life coaching and how wonderful that is to
Mhm.
witness and experience and be a part of. So there's dark sides to everything. Like, so basically a couple of my friends died and it was super
Mm.
jarring, of course,
Yeah.
two different times, like years apart. But when my first friend passed, and he was doing something that I wouldn't normally do, like he was a pusher of the envelope and boundaries in the sport, which was really great for him. He was so much called to live into that, like
Mm.
pushing the envelope type of part of the sport. I'm not like that. So I knew that I wasn't at risk to go in the same way because I just don't participate in the sport like that.
Mhm.
But it sort of triggered a fear phase for me in my skydiving. And then my other friend, she passed doing something that I totally would have been doing. And so
Oh,
that just hit me like a
wow.
ton of bricks. And it made
Yeah.
me go, I am burned out. I'm just totally exhausted. I
Yeah.
need, I'm a danger in my mindset. I'm a danger to
Yeah.
myself and other people. I have to take a break. It
Yeah.
was really tough, but I had to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I had a whole collection of years where I was totally afraid of this thing that I had done thousands and
Right.
thousands and thousands of times. So I have 11,000 skydives in about 23 years in the sport, which is sounds like a ton. Yeah, there's some people with more and
For someone that does none, yes, it sounds
yeah.
like a lot.
So what I'm happy to report now is that so I took 2 years off of skydiving and that was 2 years ago. And
Okay.
so I've been back skydiving for 2 years after, so 18 years super intense, 2 years of nothing,
Mhm.
2 more years now of jumping
Mhm.
again. But as I inched back into the sport, I had to really inch through and design each time I engaged in it, do it very mindfully, just as I would
Mhm.
encourage anybody to do as they engage in their own fear. So it's the
Yeah.
same iteration of what parameters do I need to set up such that I can feel safe enough to take the step to do this? So there are different ways of skydiving and stuff like that. So that's how and why I was able to do it. But now I feel a lot more like my renewed self, connected to the joyful thing that brought me to skydiving, connected to ways I want to be of service to the community and other people, ways I want to enjoy it myself, you
Yeah.
know, and then not doing anything else. Like I don't do big world records anymore. I'm not interested in that. It's too many people. I'd rather do something small and help, you know, a new person. And that feels good to me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, because in some ways, I feel like leaving my corporate job, for me, I was at such a low point and that I got out of that and I made the change for myself. And now I say, like, okay, I can like do anything. But now I just have, I mean, right now I'm not like leaving another corporate job again. So I won't relive it exactly the same way. But I think then just other fears and things pop up that you have to work through in terms of, yeah, like doing something uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Um, Especially as an entrepreneur and just trying different things and figuring out like what your path is. It's like, well, you got to put yourself out there. So for me, the discomfort is like that I have to, continuously go through putting myself out there, and
Totally.
kind of like inch along.
It's a consistent challenge for me too.
Yeah.
because there was a huge part of me that used to feel like, oh God, I was always worried what people would think. Like I was worried that people would think I was just like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, as opposed to seeing my true core, like the nature of the genuineness of my desire to be of service. I was always very worried that that wasn't going to be seen. And then I had to just, it's this whole thing of like really
Raising my
getting,
hand again.
yeah, I know. It was a consistent thing for me. I still come up against that sometimes as I put myself out there in bigger and bigger ways
Hmm.
and more creative ways that I'm called to do.
Hmm.
Believing that is of highest service to other people is to really lead by that courageous self-expression. I believe in that to my core. That's why Elizabeth Gilbert is one of my lovers, because I write and
I could totally
yeah.
see that. Yeah. Yeah.
But the getting comfortable being uncomfortable is a real thing. I think
Yep.
very consistent thing with entrepreneurship and creating. I think mostly for creative entrepreneurial pursuits. I think it's probably a little different for someone who maybe has like a physical product business or a business where they're not the face of the business. I think it's a
Yes.
little
Hmm.
different, but
Yep.
I'm sure that's rife with different kinds of fears as well.
Yeah. So for my mesh underwear, the product business,
Yeah.
I didn't have it not nearly the same way as I do now for Transitions Collective, and just even showing up to do interviews, and can I do video interviews? Are they helpful for people? Like all of those things, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't go away. It's kind of, or
I
like,
think we get better and better.
yeah,
Every time we put ourselves out there and we don't die,
yeah,
we don't die from the pushback. And here's
right.
another thing that always helped me too is this idea of, if you don't have haters, you're not standing strongly enough for something.
Wow.
So like I don't have, I haven't experienced tons of haters in my career, but I certainly have.
Yeah.
Uh, and so there's a part of me that really gets and disconnects from that now, going, cool, if I'm really standing for some kind of message
Mm,
that's really true to me, and
hmm.
there's a stand for that, then theoretically there's going to be people that don't agree. And
Right.
that's good. That's
Right.
actually a good thing. So having that reframe around dissent helped me a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I like that. I'm going to have to keep that one up here.
Right
Yeah.
on, sister. Do
It's
it.
just for, yeah, putting yourself out there. Okay. I had another question that I think might, be helpful to people in the audience as they're, growing and doing things for themselves. But you recently wrote a blog post about drama and how to stop, stop yourself from either experiencing or having the drama to be able to push yourself forward. And I feel like a lot of people can get stuck also in that way, right? Like all of these voices are talking to them and they're projecting too much on a situation. So can you share your tips for how to limit that? Or I think you even said just get rid of it from your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. One of the best compliments I ever received in my career, just as a person,
Yeah.
this is a long time ago, actually, but I've reflected on it and I've used it to support me forever. Is somebody said to me, and this is in skydiving, where it's a small community where lots of people are up in each
Yeah.
other's business
Yeah.
and yada, yada, yada. It's totally normal in any community and life,
Right.
period. So there's nothing unusual there. It's more that the smallness of the community, it can tend to feel magnified, I think, for some.
Hmm.
So one day somebody said to me, they were like, "You never seem to be a part of any drama. Like how is that?" Like,
Yeah.
and I
So
and I
cool.
was like, "Hmm, am I? Am I not?" Like I didn't even know. I mean, this is a
Right.
long time ago. And I've
Right.
certainly been a part of dramatic tales and since then, but how what I feel like they were meaning is that it wasn't like I was never really it wasn't really a big part of what I was up to. And what
Mhm.
I ended up saying is I was like, I just don't subscribe. Like I just don't participate, you know?
Yeah.
And that was a relatively like not naive, but youthful way to say that.
Mm.
But the truth is that what I think I meant as my young self, and have now reflected now as my more experienced older self, is that I don't participate in the sense that I'm connected to what I'm doing. I don't assign meaning, and I don't fear the impact of a dramatic scenario on me and my life or my reputation, because I know that I'm living in alignment with what matters to me, what I believe is good, right, and good. Again, not as a judgment, but as for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I can go to sleep at night regardless, because of the choices that I've made. So the article that I wrote about this is that I reinforced this idea, the skills around mindset, of going, what is it that I believe? You know, what are my mindsets? If I'm in some scandalous situation, I've done this practice where I've really thought to myself, given I'm a public figure, as it were, AKA I have a business where I'm out there in the
Right.
public all the time, telling stories about my life and being seen, you
Right.
know, and having that be part of my whole livelihood, is that I found myself really going, what scares me that it would be like seen, you know, like what am I worried about that someone might talk about?
Mm-hmm.
And I would then freak out. I basically went through a lot of like all those types of things where I was like, how would I address that if that came out and some hater was like digging up dirt on me, and some thing that I did as a young person that I'm not proud of? How would I address that now? You know?
Right.
And that's the thing, like thinking through that made me really go, you know what? I'm not afraid. And I can acknowledge, as a younger person, I might have not been as awesome. You know, I might have done some things and said some mean things to other people and maybe not meant it, you know, like all sorts
Yeah.
of that stuff where, and trust me, I don't feel like that was really a huge part of my story of being like this sort of perceptibly bad person. I don't
No.
think that.
No.
But we're all human, is my
Yeah.
point. And we all have things in our past that we're not necessarily the most proud of, or maybe we're embarrassed by.
Right.
And so working through those mindset. The second thing is intention about what I'm doing. And what I said before is the intention of what I'm doing is, I believe that as a positive path. So regardless of what people think of it, I'm connected to the intention of what I'm out to do. I'm out to add value to other people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out to be an example of courageous self-expression. I'm out to be an example and a leader in terms of positivity and kindness and comedy, you know,
I was
like,
going to say, and humor. Yeah.
and yeah, and not everybody's going to get my humor, you know, and that's okay. It's okay. I still am committed to that. And then the last thing that I wrote about in terms of drama, and not so, because that's the thing, because like the drama can come at you, but if you're grounded averse from response, then you're doesn't matter what
Yeah.
happens. So the last thing in terms of drama and sort of managing that, or being prepared for that, is having boundaries, knowing what treatment, what type of communication is acceptable to you and what is not. Like, for example, dealing with haters on the internet, for example, I am always open and super appreciative of any dissenting, thoughtful communication, respectful, thoughtful communication,
Mm-hmm.
whether we agree or disagree. I'm all about that. I think that's super valuable for everyone to read, for me to consider, all of it.
Yep.
What is never okay with me is a malicious remark. That will never, it has no place in my social media. It gets deleted and that person gets blocked immediately, period. Yep. So I'm pretty harsh about those types of boundaries, and there's other boundaries, but that type of stuff, you can think about it relationally too. You know, client work. How is it that we want to engage our clients? What is it that they need to do in terms of showing up, you know, in terms of giving us notice if they can't make it, in terms of number of times they flake. Can they ever flake? Like lots of different things, like really considering that, such that you can, with calm clarity, just communicate it when you're faced with something that is outside, or it is outside of those boundaries, or inside, whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been aware of boundaries as much as I have this last year, you know, just from just from getting used to, a new style and new things to work through and everything else. And how do you manage all that?
Yeah.
Mm.
It's very, very relevant in personal relationships.
Yeah.
So I work a lot with people about boundaries in terms of personal relationships, because that's usually where people who are nurturers, lovers, givers, contributors tend to, if they're not clear on those boundaries, then people will take more than they have
Yep.
available, and
Yep.
they'll end up depleted, and then their goals will suffer only because of a lack of clarity. That
Yep.
lack of awareness is driven by something theoretically positive, in the sense that it's great that you want to give and we want to be open and connecting with other people. We just need to be aware of the boundaries, so that if we're tired or we need rest, or learning to say no, like all of
Right.
that stuff is connected to our bigger goals and our bigger mission.
Yeah, and that's a big one for me, because if people message me or my initial response is always like, respond right away, respond right away. But that's just not sustainable over time, and I just have to find the right buckets to work in, and all of that. Yeah, and be
Absolutely.
mindful of I have a amazing, like, spiritual woman that I know that's just fantastic, and she told
Okay.
me to watch my energy dollars.
Hmm.
So she said, Mary, think of your day in terms of energy dollars, and wherever you spend those energy dollars, you don't have them for something else. So now it's like
Huge.
one of my like mantras. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, where are you putting your energy dollars?
I love it.
Because I think about it a lot,
Spot on.
you know, so that's
On.
been a really, really helpful for me too. So,
And people, I think, also feel like they're not a bad person, but maybe there's some undertone of that. Like they feel bad when they decide not to allocate energy dollars to a certain person or a
yeah,
certain
I feel
ask.
very
Right.
guilty when that
So
happens.
that's something to work back from, and
Yep.
really genuinely work on self acceptance and trust. Like you're a good person.
Yep.
The fact that you say no to something, or something is not, doesn't fit in your life right now, or you choose not to help a person in a certain way right now, doesn't mean
Right.
anything about you as a person.
Right.
That I had to work through that a lot. It used to be like, oh, I want to help everybody, and if I can't, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Amazing. You are
Ah,
amazing.
you're amazing. We're amazing.
Oh, this is a great way to start the week. Uh, okay, so just another closing question that I ask everyone that comes on the show. What skill from your corporate life has helped you the most as an entrepreneur?
What skill from my corporate life has helped me the most as an entrepreneur? Oh, that's a good question. What skill? Corporate life. Holy smokes, that was a long
It
time
was
ago
a
for
while
me.
ago.
I'm like, oh, that was a long time ago.
You can
You
say what you
know,
think is most important too as an entrepreneur. That's okay.
it's I think it's in the realm of that you can play in any kind of circle. Like I might perceptibly not fit in you know, you know what I mean? Like this idea of like, and I don't like the word networking, but this idea of connecting with people, and certainly different kinds of communities are really useful and super good because you values line, like Transitions Collective, super awesome because it's clearly you can go there and it's a values aligned, you're going to meet with like minds and get value in that sort of vein, which I think is awesome. And look back at my corporate career, and even though it wasn't a fit, I like that I know I could play there if I wanted to.
Yeah.
So it in a way, it's yet another example of a way that I'm not limited. So like for me socially, and like when I'm putting myself out there socially, and networking, again, I don't like that term because I feel like it implies you're wanting to take something. But when I'm going out and meeting people and joining different things or going to various events, I feel like there's tons of value in being really open-minded about things that seemingly don't fit for you, because you never know where that sort of unique idea or unique connection will be made with
Hmm.
unique win-win will happen for you, for them, or something. I feel like that openness is really rich with possibility.
I have to comment then that that's one thing that I noticed right away about you when we met at the name tag stand. So when we were both at the same event, but it was just that you were like, I'm here. I will talk to anybody. And how's it going? And like, you're just like a burst of like open sunshine, you
Oh,
know?
thank you.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
a beautiful
Yeah.
reflection.
No,
Thank you.
it's extremely noticeable. And where some people would go in, especially even for me, when I show up at an event by myself, but I want to connect with other people and whatever, you can still feel self-conscious, when you walk in the door and it's like, I'm going to stand over here because I don't know what to do.
Totally.
But
I like to
I,
say, I like to say that, and this is true, I say it because it's true, is that I really like people, and I'm like infinitely fascinated by people. Again, it's really clear why I became a life coach and how I did what I did socially
right.
in my work. But I really like people, and even the people I don't like, I like, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So like, not in terms of boundaries and stuff, not everybody, like I'm not going to like everybody, not everybody's going to get to be close to me, but
Right.
I'm just like infinitely curious about other people, and that can be a really open, non-judgmental, energetic that you can carry into a
Mm-hmm.
place where you're meeting new people. Is just like, I'm just very curious. I don't need to get anything out of this night. I'm gonna,
Right.
I might, it'll be cool if I did. I might be able to add value, but I'm just gonna be curious and share where it seems right to share. It's just this sort of very open,
Yep.
detached from the outcome type style.
Yes. It's lovely. I'm
Thank
sure you meet a
you.
lot of cool people like that.
I
Yeah.
do. I feel like it really helps me connect in a real
Mm-hmm.
genuine way with other people because there's no judgment and no pressure. Like even with my curiosity, without judgment, it doesn't mean they have to share with me. They just
Right.
can if they want to.
Right.
And that's it.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You are amazing. Okay,
Oh,
so
girl.
okay, so can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes. Most of my life coaching stuff is at melaniecurtis.com.
Mhm.
I do a podcast as well, which
Yeah.
is trustthejourney.today. So that is where you can find that. It's a podcast I do with my spiritually seeking professional skydiving colleague. But yeah, mostly melaniecurtis.com. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Melanie. This was
Yay!
fantastic. I'm so happy we got to do this.
Me too.
Well, I'm going to try to do that too.
Yes.
I'm going to start doing interviews with all kinds of like fun things now.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Melanie. I thought she had so many great things to say about overcoming fear and employing courage. It's so impactful to me. I think especially because courage was my word of the year and I've just gone through so much. Um, and she had so many great tips for how you work through your fear. So first you feel it, then you identify it, and then you ask what is going on with it. I think all of those are really important steps to be able to get to the courage part of things and where you really take those steps and put yourself out there more. So I hope you found that helpful and insightful. I still can't believe she also has jumped out of over 11,000 airplanes. It's really cool, but not something I plan to do anytime soon. Um, anyway, the other part of what I really liked about what she discussed was setting boundaries, making the time for yourself, and really being mindful and staying true to who you are is what I took from it. And if you are okay with what you're doing and you know that you're on your path, that's what matters the most. So I really enjoyed that perspective of things as well. If you'd like to hear more about Melanie, please go to melaniecurtis.com. You can also have a listen to her podcast, trustthejourney.today. As always, if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you, mary@thetransitionscollective.com. And I'm also launching the Transitions Collective membership community coming up in March 2019. So if you'd like to hear more about it, It's going to be a community that offers resources and experts for women that are building their businesses. Please go to thetransitionscollective.com/community, and you can sign up to get notified and hear more about what we're planning. I hope you have a great rest of your day and speak to you soon. Bye.